not afraid. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you on our side.
He tied the mark at 44, July the 1st, you know. Since then he's hit a good 12 more. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you on our side.
From coast to coast, that's all you'll hear of Joe, the one-man show. He's glorified the horse-hide sphere. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio, we want you on our side.
He'll live in baseball's Hall of Fame. He got there blow by blow. Our kids will tell their kids his name. Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
We dream of Joey with the light from back. Joe DiMaggio,
We want you on our side.
Welcome to, I think this is our third Sword show, Mark.
Thank you.
Is that right? Third show?
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, thanks to Mark from Las Vegas joining me today, and we're going to do our analysis of Sword, State of the Union, State of the Nation 2013. First of all, how about that draft? How did you do in the draft this year?
I did good. I had more picks than everybody and more carryovers, so that was fun.
You have a heck of a team.
Thank you. Yes.
It's a very good team.
7th and 9th round picks like Rick did last year, or other people have other years. So I just have like more 12th and 14th round type players. So that was
You had some quality picks all in a row for it seemed like a couple rounds, and I think you started an outfielder run or something like that, if I recall.
Yeah, and I got the prospects I wanted. So,
There you go. Let's talk just a moment, because I know we've been talking offline. A lot of people have been talking offline with me about the draft and the state of the draft. I know there was some discussion during the draft about powering through and making things shorter, but I think we were impacted this year by two owners that had us on auto draft, and for whatever reason they went off auto draft, thought they were on auto draft. We ended up having 4 picks, each pick taking an hour. That really ground everything to a halt for a while there. And that's just communication too, because I think if I knew that they fully intended to be on auto draft, I could have just forced the move. But on top of all that, the whole hour is a good question, because there were 3 picks, and I think I was one of them, that were made after more than 30 minutes into the draft, or into the picks, more than 30 minutes to make the pick, but didn't go all the way to the 60. You see, so if we had made the limit 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes, only 3 picks of the entire draft would be impacted.
Yeah,
and I think that's but the whole tenor of the whole draft would have been completely different. People would have, a lot more would have been done, and we probably would have been done by Sunday. So it's certainly something I want to look at this year. But you and Rick were talking about 10-minute picks.
Yeah, because we were bored out of our minds, right? And because we couldn't use the auto draft, we felt like we had to. If the auto drafts were working, it would have been a completely different draft too, because I wouldn't have cared if it went an hour. I would have went off and done something fun. But I felt like I didn't want to make everyone wait, so I was sitting tethered to the computer, waiting every time. So if they get the auto draft working, that'll also make a big difference. That's not fair left.
Yeah, we'll talk about the auto draft a little bit as well. I noticed that it was on, if your browser was open, you say get the auto draft working. I don't know if everyone figured out what was going on. If your browser was open on your PC, it looked like to me, because it worked with, certainly happened to me on Chrome, that after a pick was made, your picks would get shuffled. But if your computer was off, I don't think that happened. And on the iPad, it didn't happen to me on the iPad. I noticed that my queue stayed the same, although I never really used it. But you're right, that needs to get fixed.
I called that line, right? And the guy came right on the phone, and we did a test pick, and he saw it shuffle, and he said, well, it did pick the right one, though. I said, so can I trust it? He said, well, I wouldn't. So that was enough for me.
It did pick the right one.
It did, yeah. So if I had to bet, I would say it probably would have, but I did. It's like you spend all the time. You got extra graphics. You don't want to waste all that just because you're hoping the auto graphic works. So.
Well, you get confused too, and if it keeps mixing it up.
I can sit around and watch a graph. I have that luck.
And I think that's certainly the big concern of the 10 minutes, because Javid said that to me a couple of years. Why don't we just power through this thing? And because I've I've been part of I'm not in other roto leagues, but in like sim leagues, I've been part of drafts where we just motor through the whole thing in 2 hours. And I think like a lot of people are in like 4 or 5 pools, and to them it's just like another pool, right? So like I can see Javid, who's got experience in roto leagues or fantasy leagues, saying, why the hell are we doing this? But I think for a lot of us, old timer whiny guys, this is the only roto league we do. And it was a bad weekend for me. It was a bad weekend for Scott. And if it was a 10-minute picks, I would have missed a chunk of the day. I would have missed a chunk of the draft. And it's just, it allows us not to worry about everyone's schedule. The moment you make it 10-minute picks, my concern is that I would say, well, I don't want it this weekend. I don't want it on a Saturday, and I don't want it this weekend. And then you go to another weekend, and Rick wouldn't want it. And we get back to where we were in the old days, where we couldn't agree on a date because everyone wanted the date to be perfect for them and not have to have any obligations.
I'll tell you though, I wouldn't mind if we had just a set 2.5 hour period where there were like 4 minutes, like we call it the fast or whatever, the sprint part of the draft, and we just get through a bunch of picks then, where we all just agree on 2 hours. We can all give it that, and then go back to our slow process.
I don't know there's a way we can do that with this software, and then you have to still schedule the 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because the guys with kids are going to want it to be at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, there's an 8 in the morning now. That's not cool.
Yeah, so there we go there. And new rules, carryovers. Not everyone, even myself who put the new carryover rule, I had no carryovers eligible at the end of the year, or legible. But so you can see the draft was affected by that. People are already going in picking deep players with the idea of getting their carryovers in now with a limited free agent signings. You can't exactly just sign your carryovers in July and just take advantage of whoever's doing well. It's a completely different mindset, yes?
Yeah, Jimmy Q and I were talking about that with Rick, actually. And, Alana sat there watching us. And he was saying that's probably the biggest change to trying to stay competitive every year is the carryover just makes it. That was the one thing you could do where even if you were trading picks or, going all in, you could use the carryover rule to stay competitive year to year. And that's really, really lessened now with the new rule.
Right. And I think there was... It brings up the idea of any rule changes, because you and I, although we're not really looking to make any more rule changes, there are some little oddities out there left over from the old days, and I think you brought up a good idea that, we've tried to make it less confusing with the new carryover rules, but having the rookie rules for the minor leaguer or 21st man be the exact same for pitchers and carryovers, but different between them and batter carryovers, is really confusing, and maybe we should just make them all one limit.
Yeah, I'd be okay with it because it's simpler. I will say, when I went out and talked with Rick and Jimmy Q and appreciated how they do know the finer details, and it would be a big change in shift, I started to think, well, maybe we don't want to overdo simplicity for the forsaking strategy. So that made me pause on the whole thing. But I do think
something to consider.
Yeah,
I think we'll throw it out there on whether or not people want to do it on the. We'll start a league discussion on that. I know another league discussion rule change we talked about is whether or not we even want to continue with the carryover draft or picking carryovers, because that rule was put in. It was a Troy Percival rule, because I think I can't remember if it was even me or if it was Fern, but Troy Percival was closing for the Angels, but he was stashed. It was for me. He was closing for the Angels, and I had him in my AAA all year with the hopes of having a free carryover who was a closer to be more competitive the following year. So we needed to have that rule in there that if people were going to start carrying over qualified stars, that someone should be able to take away from them. But by putting the limits so low on what it makes to make you a carryover, I think maybe we don't even need to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't even close this year to anyone. Like, there was no one I would consider using a top 6 pick on with that little major league experience.
Yeah. So that was another idea. Also, too, just to make the commissioner's life easier, I'm thinking to put a request for a rule change. Just let people like yourself who had a lot of carryovers and protects and that, just let them draft to the end, and then they just have to cut their players, because trying to count how many players people had and then when they're when they're out of the draft, and I had to turn people's auto pick off because the draft was just going to pick for you or pick for Rick, and I had to manually intercede at the end because we had some rule in there that when your team is full, you're not supposed to draft anymore, back from the manual days. And I think just for life, I'm going to make that rule change. I think a request that we can do that. I can't imagine a big problem with that.
Would have loved to pick people. I was hating watching like Dylan G and Jed Lowry and people go that late and going, oh, I hate that they're getting that much quality when I'm done. So.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So there's the rule and the rule changes that we were thinking about. Any other comments on Sword? How's Sword going for you? Are you paying attention this year?
Yeah, this year, because I got the draft pick, so I'm like much more ready to enjoy it. But that was a crazy good draft. Everyone's really good now. There's so much parity. All the players that you thought would go too soon, like Ryan Howard, like by the time Javits picked him, I'm like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good pick now, I suppose.
I think so. I think the Ortiz Howard picks were right in par.
Boucher was crazy, Javits, but yeah, otherwise, yeah. And all the people that you thought you had kind of stashed away, like Estrada's another Javits pick, I think, they all went faster than I thought. So it's so much harder than it was back. Everyone's so much more prepared.
Yeah, I agree. I had a few picks that I thought would be bold in the next round, and sure enough, someone got them. It's almost like we're all reading Chandler or something.
Yeah.
I think it's time for the Sword 2013 Power Ratings. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to unveil our power ratings. This is coming out of the Commissioner's office. The Commissioner's officially tabulated these carefully with 100% certainty, precision to the 12th decimal. What we've got here is 3 different systems, and I haven't weighted them in any way. I took 3 different systems and then just sort of combined the projected finish of each team based on the 3 separate systems. And for the record, the systems are the Chandler's projections with proposed lineups based on the highest value out of a Chandler projection. And also I've got some of the apps on the CBS Sports line. There's a forecaster app and an app called The Assistant, and we've combined those as well. And for the record, by the way, so I've been playing with the apps this year just to have fun. They're a lot of fun. I don't think anybody's missing anything if you don't get them. As an example, I purchased this year the app that automatically sets your lineup. If you're out, you can put the auto one on if you're like traveling or whatever. And it wants to start Jeter for me this week. And Jeter's going on the DL. He's got a little red cross beside his name and everything. So I don't really know what value it is. If they can't even avoid players that are hurt, I don't really know what the hell I'm supposed to do with this thing. So I've got it turned off. Anyway, there's my.
That's the problem in a New York app where it's just like you start Jeter no matter what.
There it is. I'm sure we can get one for Chipman on the Jays. Let's start with our power rankings. Number 10, ranked best case 9th, worst case 10th. The Brooklyn Banana Slugs, Fighting Slugs. What do you think of this team, brother?
They're not great. He made some pretty good picks. If he got no injuries whatsoever, I think he could go to the middle. His bench is horrible. Just a lot of Blue Jays. So yeah, I'm not going
to actually, I made the same note. His bench, it actually is his bench is noticeably worse than the rest of the leagues, and if he stays healthy, he can do well. The amount of Blue Jays is extremely surprising.
No, it's not. We were making fun of it before the draft started.
But it just kept going.
Yeah,
it got to the point where it got silly at one point. Of course, Brooklyn is one of the
just having fun with it at one point, where he's just like
Brooklyn. Yeah, I know. I wonder too that as well. Brooklyn is one of the 2 teams that mostly auto-drafted, Scott being the other. And clearly, normally, my experience talking with folks who do a lot of pools, if you just auto-draft, you usually get middle of the pack. You don't usually get ranked top or bottom. But their auto-draft, both Scott's and Mark's, they pretty much use their own custom lists. So I don't know how much of an auto-draft it was. And frankly, the players that were listed by CBS as the top picks, if you just put auto-draft on Ortiz in the top of the list the entire draft, it would have been terrible. So I don't know how well an auto-draft would have done without some customization.
Yeah, well, I'll say about Brooklyn's team is he's got like a lot of risky people like Segura or Hicks or Moustakas, and some of those will pan out. And you can expect this guy's going to be getting contacted, around July for a few of his pan-outs for some big trades. That's probably something to look for.
All right. By the way, one of the apps makes it very, very efficient to give a rating. One of the Forecaster app will give the percentage chance of a team. So this is 1/3 of the power ratings, but a percentage chance of a team winning the title this year. Brooklyn actually given 0% according to the Forecaster app. So, Mark has he's got a Cinderella story waiting to happen there.
It's going to be hard cheering against that many Blue Jays. That's going to be hard. That's not really.
It is going to be really hard. Number 9 on our power ratings. Scott Barrett.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
That's good.
You can guess. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, Scott Barrett and the Dollar Hellhounds. You can guess in the next one. Scott, same rankings as Brooklyn from a point of view of the best case 9th, worst case 10th. Also at 0% from Forecaster. What do we think of Scott's team?
Hello?
You not there anymore?
Yeah, I lost you for a second. I'm back. His outfield's weak. He's got a lot of batting average risk. He's low in stolen bases. I think his pitching bench looks great, and his actual lineup looks kind of weak. He got hurt by the auto draft, obviously, and so he took a lot of risks. Like, he came back and just chose Matt Harvey just right off the bat, swing for the fences. So I would say there's no way there's the depth, I don't think, for him to compete, but he's got some players who will make some noise, too, and some good young pitchers. So.
He has a good core. You know, he's got Strasburg for years. Bautista hopefully is healthy. Adam Jones, even Pedroia hopefully has a good career ahead of him. So, like, the core is there.
Yeah,
he's got two catchers.
Well, Mason Desmond Jennings, who's a good guy, would have drafted him, but big batting average risk. Colby Rasmus, some stolen bases, huge batting average risk. Viciedo, had him last year, good guy, big batting average risk. Will Middlebrook's the exact same thing, plate spin problems. Trumbo, I mean, Iannetta, that's a ton of batting average risk. I don't think he's going to come back.
Right. Very good. Okay. 8th place. Who's your guess? I'll give you some stats. The best case 4th and worst case 8th. That doesn't sound right, but it is 8th with worst case 8th. Yeah.
That's tough. I'm going to go with Brampton.
It's actually Tuktoyaktuk with a 1% chance of winning, according to Forecaster.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I've never seen Chris rank so low, even on. He's ranked highest, of course, on Chandler, and I know he uses Chandler projections. I don't know how much he uses them. I know they're available to him, like most of us. As he goes, he has the same software I did a couple years ago, whether he's still using it, and that's got him 4th. So Chandler's got him at his highest point. He had a couple holes in his team. I'm not used to seeing such weak catches from him and in such a weak rotation.
Yeah, I think it's the best team. I thought he had the best draft. So there you go. That's why I guess it's the field. I think shortstop, he just let it go because he thought it sucked, and he picked up Rutledge, which is a huge risk. But then at the end of the draft, everyone's done. He's got Cabrera when he needs speed, and he's got Jed Lowry, who, if they hit 30 homers, if he ever stays healthy. Ton of depth. Really, really smart. Yorko's going to play second base. It's right where his holes are. Catcher's weak, but Rosario's actually pretty good. And his pitching, he never drafts the pitchers. He's got his own thing with pitching. He's been better at drafting pitchers than everyone for 5 years. So
I guess, he's got David Price. He's got Yu Darvish. So
yep.
You can, and he's got a ton of pitchers that could pay off.
And he picked them all early intentionally, right? Sam Margeza, all of us had him down, but he knows what he's doing. And Lakos, I think he's going to be really good, and he's got a lot of depth to fill in. And people like Cashner, guys that I wanted that he picked right at the end, that are just great filler picks at pitcher. So yeah.
No, there's a ton of upside in the roster, no doubt. There is a ton of upside in the roster. There he is 8th, but just from a forecasted point of view, I haven't seen him forecast that low in a while. I'm so used to him in the top 3. 7th, who do you think?
Best on Chris, though, I would say he has a lot more. Even if you just take his forecast as straight, I mean, there's some teams you look at like Cam's where they're going to forecast really well, but there's not a lot of upside beyond it because people like Soriano aren't going to do much better. But he's got Freddie Freeman and Anthony Rizzo and Lorenzo Cain. These are all huge breakout picks.
Yeah.
And he's still forecasting to. These aren't people that are going to maybe lose their jobs or maybe be good. They'll be baseline good, maybe great kind of thing.
Well, he's very much our Moneyball owner in the sense of buying stocks just before they explode. Yes.
Yeah.
Seventh place, best case 5th, worst case 7th. 1% chance of winning. Who do you think that is?
I already insulted Rick by saying Brampton 8th, so I'll just keep picking him until I'm right. So Brampton.
Well, you're going to wait a while because Brampton's up there. It's actually Berlin is 7th.
Really? Berlin?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I had Berlin 2nd, so it just goes to show what I see.
Well, to be honest, obviously the ratings mean absolutely nothing or next to nothing. And if I was to actually take a look at the points that, as an example, Chandler's forecasting, 2nd to 7th is just a few points away, right? I mean, so we're really not, these things are all stacked in there. You said it at the beginning, there's a lot of parity here, and there's, there's the one app, like the Chandler's got all seconds to seventh all jammed, or second to eighth all jammed in there. The one app I mentioned called Forecaster, it really clearly sees 3 good teams, and the rest it doesn't see much of a chance on. So you have disagreements between the various forecaster systems about how much parity there is. But Berlin, seventh in the power rankings. Comments?
His lineup's really well constructed. Lots of power, lots of speed, good batting average to kind of offset the Ryan Howards of the world. It's a weak bench. I don't think Fluke's going to do a lot. I think Infante's, he's serviceable, but there's no real help there if anyone gets hurt from the hitting perspective. I think pitching, he did great. For a guy with no pitchers walking in, to have like Kane and Gio and Madison Bumgarner right early, and then fill it out with Chapman pretty late. I knew he wanted him back, and really was a nice late pick. So even his bench pitching is there. I think AJ Griffin's really good. Benoit gets some save. Estrada was a great pick. So he looks good. If he gets hurt in hitting, then I don't know if he'll recover. But other than that, a healthy year, yeah, I think he'll compete for sure.
I don't have much to add to that. The bench doesn't look. I mean, Teixeira is interesting. If Teixeira comes back in May, which I don't know what the chances are. I mean, that's a hell of an addition.
There's no chance of Teixeira coming back in May. And even
there's no chance. Okay.
No.
Duly noted.
Back in August, which is unlikely, he's going to be a shell of himself. All
nice.
Broken, but you don't want broken. So.
Very good. Russell Martin and Saltamakia.
Yeah.
Chandler. Yeah. Okay. Sixth in their power rankings, not Brampton. Actually pretty consistent between all the forecasters. Worst in fifth place, worst place, sixth place, best case, fifth place. So they all pretty much concede middle of the pack right now, although the forecaster group still gives it like a 1% chance of winning, not Brampton. Any ideas?
If it's consistent, I'd say Cam, because he's got a lot of veterans.
You would think that would be a Cam thing. It's actually Scarborough. The Scarborough Fools are defending champions. Sixth in the power rankings. What do you think of the Fools this year?
Yeah, they're behind, right? Like they're not good enough to win right now. The thing with Jimmy Q is that there's been a couple of years where he easily made the best in-season moves. So it's still, like the guy might not be pole position, but he's, the best driver maybe. So you still got to worry about him. That's basically it. He is a little weak though. The draft picks hurt him. I don't think he's a guy who never picks. I never like his picks, but he beats me. So, what am I going to say? That's all. Like Michael Young at third base looks horrible. I know that Hanley's hurt, but he should have the middle of the field anyway. That looks,
right.
His corner infield generally, that's like a giant hole. Hoffman's a giant risk. Michael Young, that's ridiculous. Adam LaRoche is, consistent sort of back filler, but that's it. And his bench doesn't help him. Luis Cruz, Miguel Sano, they're potential long-term value, but there's nothing really there right now. So I don't know how he's going to fill that problem. That's his.
I think the pitching after Verlander, Hamels, and Shields, he gave up and just got. Mind you, he's got Papelbon, I suppose.
Well, Rivera, Papelbon, Hanrahan. The bullpen's good, and I don't know if any Okuma is there, but Alex Cobb was a good pick. Brett Anderson, I suppose. Like maybe Ryu. A lot of question marks, a lot of hoping for the best.
Yeah.
You can't put this in the projections, but Jimmy Q's got a 7th, an 8th, a 9th, and a 10th round pick he's willing to trade. He was really clear with Rick and I that, the three-peat is on. That's the story of the year. So he's going for it. And that gives him a ton more potential resources to draw from than anyone else in the league would want to. So if he gets close, I'm really hoping he falls back far enough that he doesn't want to go for it. If he gets close, he's going to put a ton of pressure on anyone trying to compete this year by trading away picks.
Right, yeah, right. He goes all out. He's like a no-holds fighter, right? Absolutely.
Well, if he wins 3 in a row, then you got to say he doesn't. It's pretty impressive. So yeah.
So has anyone won 3 in a row?
No one won 3 in a row. Cam's tried it. Essence tried it, and I tried it a few times. I tied Brent in '99 and won '98 2000, but he won the tiebreaker. So that was close, but I didn't know it at the time. And one year I went into the third at first, the last day, but Cam won and Rick passed me too. So never happened.
Never happened. All right. Well, there we go. So look for Scarborough to go.
Totally want to stop him. I'm completely coming after him. If I'm not going to win, I'll still trade my players to him for 7th round picks. Totally. But other than that, part of the reason why I was interested. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let Jimmy do this. I got to get this way. I got to come back and do better. So.
All right. Okay, let's moving on. Fifth in the power rankings, best case third place according to one projection system, eighth place according to another projection system. The forecasters have them at a 16% chance of winning, which seeing there are 10 of us is a better than even chance. Who are we talking about?
London.
Not London. Deep Cove is fifth. You have to remember, London scores very high in the power rankings because I draft to these projections, you see, so I'm always skewed high. But go ahead. Yeah, Deep Cove, fifth place.
I should start guessing because everyone's kind of clumped now. You already picked my team.
They're all clumped. They're all totally clumped. It's a complete show, absolutely. It means nothing.
The thing I don't, Brett's got a lot of risk, like a lot of upside, but a lot of risk. Like, you know, having, we all sort of wanted Kipnis or all too, but to have them both, Morales, Cabrera, these are all guys that you said kind of could be good, but watch out when you read their stuff, right? And so I'd be surprised if he put it together, but there's definitely, I mean, he would have to have a lot go right. All of his pitchers, for some reason, that was a list of players I downgraded below what the projections were telling me. I brought Greg down, Hellickson, Fears, all of them, and so he got them all. But the biggest issue in my mind with Brett is he's got a lot of okay pitchers and only 2 relievers, which means he's going to have a lot of like 6, 7 type starters chewing up innings, help the strikeouts, hurt his saves, and hurt the RA and whip. I don't know how. He doesn't have the pitching strength. He's got depth, but not the strength to carry 7 starters every day, I don't think.
Right,
So I
right. And Deep Cove has always been in, a risky drafter. Like, you remember Hideo Nomo early, Yorvi Torial, is it Torial? No, Towel, J.R. Towels early. And who was the other catcher that was really, really hot? There was a Cubby catcher a few years ago everyone thought was going to change baseball, and he got him early. Always the guys with the big expectations. He's always been someone to go with those. That's consistent, and sometimes it pays off. I mean, guys won tons more than I have, so there we are.
Did you see that HQ came out with a grid of minor league players and the value they'll do this year? And they came out with it like the day of the draft. And last year they said, your number 1 person is Lance Lynn, and they were bang on. So I saw it and I pulled it up. And the 2 people probably that it pointed the most to were Leonis Martin, who he got, and also Rob Brantley as a backup catcher. They say he's going to earn $10, whatever that translates to in Sword. And that's a big value for someone to get it like the 38th round like he did. So he did make a lot of smart picks with a lot of good young players. I don't know if he's got enough sure things. Brett Laurie, of course, will all be interested. But probably,
yeah, Brett Laurie would be super interesting.
He would be the first to admit probably that was strategically a risky mistake because he didn't want to lose Brett Laurie. Brett and I had a talk a couple of years ago. It was last season that he's going to make sure Sword is fun, and I think I've kind of done the same thing as well. He's going to pick. It's going to like the early days of Sword, where we allowed ourselves to pick players we liked because we liked them. Just because if you're not going to win, you might as well enjoy your team that you're watching, and that's so. Anyway, I salute that. I think that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. He's still ranked. That's Jose Reyes all these years. Now he's protectable, but he wasn't some of those years. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I always thought the Reyes picks were very much like Brett Laurie's. I thought they were more emotional than anything else.
They totally were. And now he's a Blue Jay. It's going to be awesome.
Fourth position in our power rankings. We're now getting to someone. One system has him ranked first. Mark, another system has him ranked 8th, and the forecaster, one of the 3 systems, gives him a 10% chance of winning.
Wow, that shouldn't be Cam, but I'm getting them all wrong. I'm going to say Cam.
Correct, Clack and Farmers. So there we are. To be honest with you, I really question that third system. It's so different than the other ones, but it's nice to have some diversity in there. But Cam does have a good team.
Yeah, he's good. He's probably more than anyone. He and I have very, very similar views on depth. Like, I loved his McCann pick, and I don't think he has a lot of upside, though. So, I don't think that Ibar is going to suddenly change his skill sets. Pedro Alvarez, I don't see him as a breakout. I see him as maybe 35 homers, but 250 at best. Nick Swisher, Alfonso Soriano, known entities, he took them for their more or less guaranteed price sticker value. But if you're going to win, I don't see where it's coming from, if you know what I mean. I see him finishing third in like a ton of different ways, but I don't see him winning. Of course, he can make changes. He's made some good, historically, some good pitching stuff.
Yeah, he's probably exactly right. He's certainly capable of making the deal or two that needs to be done. He protected Hamilton as well. Is that another Reyes-Laurie protection?
I have no idea. No one. I've spoken to several owners about this. The whole Pujols, he easily could have kept Pujols and traded him for a second round or a third round pick or whoever was in the draft, he could have traded Javid, here, take Pujols and I'll draft your second round pick and improve his team right there instead of taking him as a sixth round pick. No idea what Cam, I can't wait to ask Cam that. Let alone I can't believe he didn't protect him. It's just really weird. It's like they had a fight or something. It's like Pujols said something bad about Lucy. I don't get it.
Well, it's actually, that was the next question, because even if you're not keeping Pujols, is Hamilton himself worth the protection, objectively speaking, or is this just an emotional pick? Because I didn't have Hamilton as a protectable player.
Well, Hamilton's, he's an injury risk, so BQ or HQ puts him down a ton because they presume something like 490 at bats or whatever it is. And so, and Pujols has been healthy for 100 years. Even when you read about his injuries, he still plays. So, yeah, I don't get it. But James Sparty knows what he's doing. So he obviously knows he was going against book. So I'll be interested. I can't wait to hear what he thought.
Right. Okay, very good. Third place. This is where we actually get to talk about London. My team. Best case second, worst case one projection system has me at sixth. Of course, I draft based on one of these projection systems. The Forecaster app actually has me at a 2% chance of winning, so well below Klacken and DC, who are ranked fourth and fifth. So that system just hates my team, as opposed to the other two systems think I'm fairly strong. What do you think about United this year?
First of all, I thought your draft was hilarious. You had great hitting, and at one point, I was just looking at the pitching depth of every team, and everyone had their four guys, and you had Holiday and nothing else. I was like, oh, he's just not going to have pitchers this year. That's his strategy. So obviously, you just went to fill your hitting with sure things, and your hitting is very strong, and no doubt you can make some moves around that. I thought you did a pretty good job. Other than Holiday, I didn't really like that pick, but given where you were with pitching, I was really surprised how much pitching depth stayed on the draft until late, and so you were able to pick up a lot of really good people, like Lance Lynn, or like, hell, you got Brandon Morrow before Mark seeded. That's remarkable in itself. And Derek Holland, those are all really good value picks. Your pitching's still not great, though, obviously. You can't just make up for it. But you might be able to, and you got a lot of depth, too. And Ryan Cook, I really hated that pick. It was a good pick. So I feel like if pitching holds up, then you can finish mid-pack pitching and win hitting and potentially be right in the middle of it and potentially win. So that was your best draft, I thought.
I've never been able to make a move that puts me over the edge. I've had years where out of the gates, whether it's the draft or lucky or the payoff, where I'm in the top three coming down the run, but I've never been able to make that move that you mentioned that Cam's done before, or certainly Tuck has done, or Scarborough has done. I've never been able to do that, and that's always burned me. So we'll have to see.
That's our 24th year, Sean. That's so depressing.
It's quite. The only thing that keeps me going is the guy who invented rotisserie baseball. That original league is still going, and the guy who came up with the idea also has never won. And he's a good 10, 15 years ahead of me. At least as of 3 years ago, according to Fantasyland, he had never won. So we're idea people, is what we are. We just hope you're enjoying our ideas.
Yeah, your hitting solid is going to come through. There's no holes there. So you're going to have great. So that means that's half the league right there. And pitching is the number one. Like, you've got your 3 free agents, maybe more, I don't know. And that's where you're going to make your moves, obviously. So that's not a bad place to be. That's the easiest place to react to is pitching. So this could be it, Sean. Looks good.
Could be it. I'm feeling good about it. I have Alexander helping me out now. So we'll be able to credit him if anything actually comes together this year. Coming down to our last couple teams, Mark, you're not second. It's Brampton who's second, who you thought was 9th or 8th. Brampton is, according to one system, second, and according to its worst system, 7th. But the Forecaster app loves him, gives him a 28% chance of finishing in first place. That's a hell of a great opportunity, if that's even close to true, to go into after the draft, to come out of the draft 28%, almost 1 in, or a little higher than 1 in 4, to win that. You don't agree though, do you?
Actually, I might. He's hard because if you look at his team, more than other teams, you see big holes, right? He's got his middle infield's pretty weak, and his outfield is the weakest in the league by far. So then you think, well, how can he be that good? His pitching's great. He did a great job of pitching, and he did last year too, so that's interesting to me. But you think, how can he overcome that? It's just his corner infielders and his catchers are so head above heels over. So when I see holes, I tend to downgrade, but I'm not running overall projections. So if you're telling me they average out, because Beltre and Longoria and Votto and Buster Posey and Molina are enough hitting that you don't need outfielders, I'd be tempted to believe that. Certainly his pitching is good. So that doesn't. I just thought maybe he would project low because he's got some holes, but that they're very fixable. Certainly he's a threat. I'm completely worried about his team, and I love his pitching picks.
Yeah, no, you're right. He has a very strong, very, very strong rotation according to Chandler, which is all I go by.
Cueto went way too far, and he got him. Matt Moore, he's got just at the right time, I thought. Carlos Momo was probably a terrible pick, but that was probably the only one. And I hated him getting like Dylan G in my 40th round. I just hated it.
Yeah. Very good. All right, and I think you're right. A super strong team. I think the pitching is definitely the make or break. If the pitching comes out even close to what they're projecting, he's going to have a very strong team. Pitching always seems to be the riskiest, and I don't know what it is, but it looks like in the 20-some years we've been in Sword, I've seen a hell of a lot more pitcher injuries devastate teams. I've seen that increase over the last 25 years. So, and as you mentioned, I didn't really draft a lot of pitchers early in the. I don't know what it's going on. I don't know if the pendulum's swinging in that direction, or it's just people are hypersensitive to their pitchers. But it seems to be a riskier component to the game.
You know what's interesting is Rick really uses his own system, and so he doesn't care about HQ. He made up his own rules. He's got. I won't divulge them because he's been kind enough to talk to me what he does, but. He's got his own things that I don't know of anyone else doing that he uses that are really neat. So it's cool to see that it worked enough that it works in the projection systems that we're drafting to that he's not.
Right. Yeah, good for Rick. Okay, first place this year, according to Chandler, and in two of the systems you're picked first. One of the systems you're picked fourth for the year. The forecaster system, which absolutely loves you, says that you have a 40% chance of winning the league out of the gate now. What do you think of your team?
I have the most depth, so I should definitely compete. That's about it. I think I have a ton of depth. I'm pretty pleased with what I did, but I think every draft I thought I was first because I always draft the players I want. So I don't know. I do think that this is fun, but so much of it is season management, and probably the most important thing to say about my team is that I've been bad at drafting pitching for like 10 years and haven't won in 10 years. So I've tried something new this year, and as usual, I'm very, yay, it's going to go well, but it's been a long time since I've done well with pitching, so that's definitely a concern for me, so we'll see how it goes.
I think your outfield is absolutely devastating. I just can't imagine.
The Hayward, that was a tough one for me.
It was borderline. I think certainly defensible. I think you could have done what you protected him or not protected him, and then everyone's bias on that you making the right decision. They go, well, that makes sense. I think you could have argued either way on that. I don't know where the hell Carlos Gonzalez came out. I don't remember when did he get so big, so good. I don't remember. But in my draft preparation and everything else, his name just keeps haunting me. And of course, they're predicting big things for Jose Reyes in Toronto. Chandler is anyway.
Nice.
Not to mention, Goldschmidt and Berkman were good picks for where they were.
Yeah,
Berkman's.
I think we all just sat there going, well, one of us is going to have to take him eventually, because I know that HQ had him so high, but the other ones had him so low. So we all had our original HQ, and we're all going, oh, that's too high. And around the 17th round, I was like, well, that's it. That's enough. I'm going to have to.
No, I was going to get him next. You got him just before I did, because I thought, well, now this is definitely, Berkman at this area. If he gets half of what Chandler thinks he's going to get, he's worth it. So I think it was a great pick. Good. No, you have a super strong team, and I think it's extremely exciting. And I think you have we've talked about it before about how early can somebody have the league locked up. And I remember Brampton had a season, I think it was 4 seasons ago or 5 seasons ago. Do you remember they had that great draft, and then they were ahead by so much after the first month that you and I asked, is it possible he's got it locked up? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, but you know that I argued that it wasn't.
No, but we were questioning at what point do we start thinking.
Yeah, so we're nowhere near that desperate. I mean, I also remember my favorite, the one year I've lost a lot on the last day, but one year I won on the last day. It was the time Fern was up like 30 points on July 31st at the actual Sword meeting, and he was bragging about how he's already ahead of us next year. And I changed my mind, and I made some trades and went after him and actually caught him on the last day, and we were live on email together, watching it together. Well, no one else in Sword cared what was going on, and both of us were like living and dying by every pitch. And so you never have it locked up.
You never have it locked down. I completely agree. Just in the interest of complete transparency, I'll go to according to my manipulation of the Chandler numbers, Las Vegas finishing at 87 points for first place. London at 64.5. Of course, because I drafted to these numbers, as I said before, so they're skewed high for London. But the other people who didn't draft specifically to this system, my modified Chandler system, who had no idea how we'd be measuring this. Look how close these are. Deep Cove, 58.5. Tuk-Tuk, 56. Scarborough, 56. Berlin, 53.5. Brampton, 53.5. And then Clackamas at 46. There's a ton of parity here. You take 20 points off my team because, as I said, they're skewed, or even take 15 off, and it's like anywhere from, basically, I guess what we're saying is, according to all the systems, Dollard and Brooklyn are the only ones that have very big hill to climb.
Yeah, that's right.
And
there's going to be so much injuries. And my draft strategy, because I had 12th and 14th round picks, right, so I wasn't going to get a star, was I'm going to build a team where I can take off like Ryan Braun might get suspended for 50 games, so I might as well be ready for that right from the start. I had a bunch of extras. It's all about depth. And so some teams, like I think it was Scott last year, he ran into no injuries and was really shooting right up at the top for a long time, so towards, I don't know, two-thirds through the season. So teams that don't get hurt, any one of those top 8, and even more of a stretch for Scott and Mark Chipman, but any one of those top 8 easily be up by 20 points in mid-July if they don't get any injuries.
Agreed. I completely agree. And you never know. I mean, I don't think Dollard and Brooklyn are finishing the bottom 2 anyway. Right, we know one of them are going to go higher. I don't know how high, but it just, the projections rarely come close to anything resembling truth.
But you have to say, I mean, if we're really going to talk about this, you have to say 3 teams have won in 10 years, right? Jimmy Q, Cam, and Essen. And so this is great, but the decisions we make are so critical, and those guys are going to do well. So they're the, even with this, they're the favorites right now. If only I'd never won, I could be that up-and-comer, break through and do it.
You sound like all the Blue Jays, and you sound like all the Blue Jays I hear in the interviews about how, well, they're good on paper, but they're not favorites because they haven't done anything yet. So.
Oh no, Jimmy Q, I'm totally coming for you. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally talking about it. I'm just trying to be a practical, radio host guy. Excellent, Mark. Always a pleasure. Maybe we should try to do this again during this season, because I just went through the whole process of figuring out how to do this again. I'm using my cheap mic. I'm not using my fancy mic at this point, but we got this working up pretty quick once I figured out how to get it going again. So what do you think? Should we try it again this year? Yeah, sure.
Excellent. No, I don't care who listens. I don't give a damn about that. What is it? Our peak audience listening is 8 anyway, not including us. So it's not like it'll make a big difference. Any final thoughts before we let it go?
Yeah, who's going to win the World Series?
This year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the Jays have it locked down, don't they? On paper, anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty much done. Yeah, that's why Chipman's probably going to be better than we think, too. Same reason.
Excellent. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother. Have a great time. Good to enjoy opening night tonight and then opening day tomorrow. I have actually the day off for Alexander and I to watch baseball all day tomorrow.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that fun?
Len and I are going
to do
a bunch of games here, so we're excited. And we're going to go with Jimmy Q again for sure, too, and Rick a bunch of times. So if people want to come, they should just tell us.
Let Mark know if you want to go a bunch of games. I bought into a group of season tickets with someone, so we've got I think we've got 12 at least games we were going to as well, plus the odd other extras here and there. So very much looking forward to the season this year. Not to mention road trip to Minneapolis to see Target Field. They're going to take the family to see Target Field, and road trip. That'll be a flight trip, and the road trip in the car. We're going to go down and see Jacobs Field. Never been to Cleveland, so we're going to go look at that.
Nice. You should have Rick on. He'll talk to you about the California trip. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. All right, then.
Like 5 games in 3 days or something.
No, that sounds fantastic. All right, brother. Have a great baseball season. Good luck to you, sir.
All right, cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
The Whiz Kids had won it. Bobby Thompson had done it. And Yogi read the comics all the while. Rock and roll was being born. Marijuana we would scorn. So down on the corner the national pastime went on trial. We're talking baseball. Klazuski, Campanella talking baseball. The Man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber and the Nuke. They knew 'em all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey and the Duke. Well, Casey was winning, Hank Aaron was beginning, one Robbie going out, one coming in. Kind Tanner and Midget Goodell, Lou Thumper and Mel Parnell, and Ike was the only one winning down in Washington. I'm talking baseball, Klazuski, Campanella, talking baseball. The Man and Bobby Fella, the Scooter, the Barber, and the Duke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque, especially Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. Now my old friend, the bachelor, well, he swore he was the Oklahoma Kid, and Cookie played hooky to go and see the Duke. And me, I always loved Willie May. Those were the days. Well, now it's the 80s, and Brett is the greatest, and Bobby Bonds can play for everyone. Rose is at the vet, Rusty again is a Met, and the great Alexander is pitching again in Washington. I'm talking baseball, like Reggie Quisenberry, talking baseball. Carew and Gaylord Perry, Seaver, Garvey, Schmidt, and Vida Blue. If Cooperstown is calling, it's no fluke. They'll be with Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. Mickey and the Duke. Say hey, say hey, say hey. It was Willie, Mickey and the Duke. Say hey, say hey, say hey. I'm talking Willie.